Olivia Bennett sat in the back row of the classroom, her gray eyes watching everything but revealing nothing. The metal chair was too big for her human frame, designed for the larger alien species that made up most of the Galactic Alliance. Her feet barely touched the floor, making her look even smaller than she was. The classroom buzzed with the sounds of 23 different alien species. Some had scales, others had multiple limbs, and a few glowed with bioluminescent patterns. They all shared one thing in common. They all thought humans were weak. Olivia was the only human in the interspecies combat training class at the Galactic Alliance Academy. Every day for the past 3 months, she had walked into this room, taken her seat in the back corner, and endured the stares, whispers, and occasional hisses of disgust from her classmates. Humans. A tall, insect-like student named Vex clicked through his mandibles. Have no place here. They are from a backwater planet. They only joined the Alliance 5 years ago. His friend, a blue-skinned female with gills along her neck, nodded. I heard they still fight wars against each other. Primitive. Olivia heard them perfectly well. Human hearing was actually quite good compared to many species in the room. She simply chose not to respond. Instead, she continued organizing her notes from yesterday's lesson on quantum-shifted combat styles. Her movements precise and economical. The classroom door slid open with a hiss. Everyone immediately straightened in their seats as commander. Zrak entered the room. The Dravian instructor stood nearly 8 feet tall, his gray exoskeleton gleaming under the lights. 4 arms emerged from his torso, each ending in 3-fingered hands. His head was flat and wide, with compound eyes that could see in almost every direction. Stand for inspection, he barked, his voice translated through the universal communicators. Warned by everyone at the academy. The students rose in unison. Olivia stood with them, her face blank as Commander Zrak walked slowly between the rows of desks. He stopped at each student, checking their uniform, posture, and preparedness. When he reached Olivia, he paused longer than necessary. Human, he said, the word sounding like an insult. Your uniform is wrinkled at the shoulders. The Academy expects perfection. Olivia looked straight ahead. Yes, Commander. Zrak leaned closer, his breath hot against her face. Your species barely understands space travel, yet they let you train. Alongside beings whose civilizations were crossing galaxies, while your ancestors were still living in caves. A few students snickered. Olivia remained silent, though her heart rate increased slightly. The biometric monitor on her wrist would show this to Zrak, who could see the readings of all students on his personal device. Your heart rate indicates stress, Human Bennett. Are you afraid? Zrak asked, his mandibles clicking with amusement. No, Commander, Olivia replied evenly. Sit down, all of you, Zrak ordered, moving to the front of the room. Today we begin practical combat demonstrations. The theoretical phase of your education is complete. Excitement rippled through the classroom. The alien students had been waiting for this moment, the chance to show their physical superiority and combat skills. Olivia returned to her seat, her expression unchanged. As you know, Zrak continued, activating the large screen behind him, the purpose of this academy is to train the next generation of Galactic Alliance peacekeepers. You will be responsible for maintaining order across 12 sectors of the galaxy. Images appeared on the screen, different species working together, ships patrolling space. Officials from hundreds of worlds gathered in the Great Council chambers. But peace requires strength, Zrak's voice hardened. And strength must be demonstrated. He turned his compound eyes toward the class. I will need a volunteer for today's demonstration. No one moved. The first demonstration was notorious every year. The student chosen would be thoroughly humiliated to show the class the consequences of poor technique. Human Bennett, Zrak said finally, his mandibles spreading in what passed for a Dravian. Smile. Come to the front. Olivia stood smoothly and walked forward. She felt the stares of her classmates, heard their whispers. The training area at the front of the classroom was a circular pad about 20 feet across. As she stepped onto it, subtle force fields activated around the perimeter to protect the other students. The human species joined our alliance through sheer luck, Srak addressed the class. They stumbled upon faster-than-light technology and were discovered before they could destroy themselves with it. Now we must teach them their place in the galactic order. He turned to Olivia. Humans believe themselves to be apex predators on their world. This is the first delusion we must correct. Olivia stood in the center of the training area, her hands at her sides, her posture relaxed but balanced. At 5'6", she was dwarfed by the instructor. Attack me, Srak ordered. Olivia didn't move. Sir? Attack me, human. Show the class your species' combat techniques. Olivia hesitated. The Academy Handbook states that students should not initiate combat with instructors outside of controlled exercises. A ripple of laughter moved through the classroom. Srak's eyes narrowed. Are you questioning my authority, human? No, Commander. I am citing regulation. Srak moved with shocking speed for his size. One moment he was standing 3 feet away. The next his lower right arm was swinging toward Olivia's midsection. She stepped back just enough for the blow to miss by centimeters. The class gasped. No one had ever seen a human move that quickly. Srak attacked again, this time with 2 arms simultaneously. Olivia ducked under one swing and sidestepped the other. She made no attempt to counterattack. Humans have slightly faster reflexes than many species expect, Srak explained to the class, as though this demonstration had been his plan all along. This is their only advantage, and it is minor. He pressed a button on his wrist device, and a training staff materialized in his upper right hand. With practiced ease, he spun it and lunged at Olivia. This time, when she dodged, the end of the staff caught her shoulder, sending her stumbling to one knee. But their bodies are fragile, Srak continued, circling her as she rose. Their bones break easily. Their skin tears. They lack natural armor or redundant organs. Olivia stood again, a small red mark visible on her cheek where she had been struck. This one has been top of her class on Earth, Srak said mockingly. She broke records in their primitive training facilities. Yet here, she is barely qualified to be a maintenance worker. The alien students laughed again. Olivia's expression remained neutral, but something flickered in her gray eyes, a calculation, an assessment. For the remainder of this session, Srak announced, Human Bennett will assist me in demonstrating the weaknesses inherent in bipedal mammalian physiology. For the next 45 minutes, Olivia endured what amounted to a systematic beating disguised as education. Srak demonstrated joint locks that made her gasp in pain, pressure points that left her limbs temporarily numb, and throws that sent her crashing to the training mat again and again. Through it all, she got up each time, her face showing the pain, but never complaint. When the class ended, her uniform was torn in several places, and a thin line of blood trickled from the corner of her mouth. Class dismissed, Srak said finally. Tomorrow we will continue with defensive techniques against Class 3 predator species. As the students filed out, many casting curious glances at the human still standing in the training area, Srak approached Olivia one last time. You did not fight back, human, he observed. Olivia looked up at him, her gray eyes meeting his compound. One's without fear. No, Commander, she said quietly. I was learning. For a brief moment, something like uncertainty crossed Srak's alien features. Then he turned away. Clean yourself up. You are a disgrace to the uniform. After he left, Olivia stood alone in the empty classroom. She touched her bruised ribs gently, wincing slightly. Then she straightened her shoulders and walked toward the door with the same measured pace she always used .no. One noticed the small recording device she slipped from her sleeve into her pocket. No one saw the brief smile that touched her lips. As she left the room, she had indeed been learning. And Commander Zrak had just taught her everything she needed to know about fighting a Dravian. 3 weeks had passed since Olivia's first combat demonstration with Commander Zrak. Each day brought new bruises, new pains, and new humiliations. The medical bay staff now knew her by name, though they rarely spoke to her beyond what was necessary to treat her injuries. 3 broken ribs this time, the blue-skinned medical officer said as he ran a regeneration device over Olivia's torso. Your species heals remarkably slowly. Olivia lay still on the examination table. We manage. The medical officer made a clicking sound with his throat. Commander Zrak's demonstrations seem particularly intense with you. I'm the only human. Olivia replied simply. After being released from the medical bay, Olivia walked slowly back to her quarters. The academy was built like a massive wheel, with the classrooms forming the outer ring, living quarters in the middle sections, and command centers at the hub. The hallways curved gently, designed for beings much larger than humans. Everything on the station made Olivia feel small. Her room was tiny compared to those of other species, but she didn't mind. Less space meant less attention. On her desk sat a small holographic projector, the only personal item she had brought from Earth. She touched it gently, and 2 smiling faces appeared in the air before her. Her parents, both wearing the blue uniform of Earth's space exploration division. Olivia looked at their faces for a long moment before turning off the projector. She sat on her bed and pulled out her personal datapad, reviewing the notes she had been secretly taking. Dravian exoskeleton weakest at joint connections, she had written. Secondary nerve cluster exposed during overhead strikes. Compound. Eyes have blind spot directly behind head crest. She added new observations from today's class, then encrypted the file and hid it within what appeared to be standard academy study materials. After completing this task, she began exercising despite her injuries careful, controlled movements designed to maintain strength without aggravating her broken ribs. The next morning, Olivia arrived early to class as always. She sat in her usual spot at the back, watching as the other students filed in. Some ignored her completely. Others stared with unconcealed disgust or curiosity. A large, furry being with 6 limbs stopped by her desk. It was Krill, one of the few students who had shown her any kindness. You should report him, Krill said, his translator converting his rumbling language into standard speech. What he's doing goes beyond training. Olivia shook her head slightly. I'm fine. You are not fine. Your species may be primitive, but you deserve basic dignity. Before Olivia could respond, Commander Zrak entered the room. Krill quickly moved to his seat as everyone stood at attention. Today's lesson, Zrak announced after the class was seated, will focus on predator psychology and combat triggers. His compound eyes swept the room before settling on Olivia. Every species has evolved with certain instinctual responses. Some are more controlled than others. He activated the large screen at the front of the classroom. A series of images appeared various alien species in fighting stances. Advanced civilizations have developed neurological safeguards, Zrak continued. We control our baser instincts through both biological and technological means. This is why the Galactic Alliance has existed for 10,000 years without internal warfare. Another image appeared on the screen Earth, blue and green against the blackness of space. Then there are species like humans. Zrak's voice took on a mocking tone. Still governed by primitive emotional responses, still fighting wars among themselves, still acting on instinct rather than reason. Olivia sat perfectly still, her face expressionless as always. Human Bennett, Zrak called. Come to the front for today's demonstration. Olivia rose from her seat and walked forward, ignoring the whispers from her classmates. As she reached the training area, Zrak pressed something on his control pad. A new image appeared on the main screen. Olivia froze when she saw it. It was her psychological profile from her academy application. Personal information that should have been confidential was now displayed for the entire class to see. Today, Zrak announced, we will examine how primitive species respond to emotional triggers. Human Bennett provides us with an excellent case study. He enlarged a section of the profile. Note the psychological trauma recorded here. Subject witnessed the death of both parents during first contact incident with Krell forces. This created what humans call post-traumatic stress disorder, a primitive response to danger that their underdeveloped brains cannot properly process. The class was completely silent now. Even the most anti-human students seemed uncomfortable with this public display of personal information. Sir, one student raised a tentacle hesitantly, isn't this information protected by academy privacy protocols? This is educational material, Zrak replied dismissively. We are studying the psychological weaknesses that make humans unsuitable for peacekeeping roles. He turned back to Olivia, who stood rigidly in the center of the training area, her eyes fixed on the image of her parents that Zrak had now pulled up from her file. Human Bennett's parents were on the first diplomatic mission to the Krell homeworld, Zrak explained to the class. When negotiations failed, they were executed as a message to Earth. Their deaths were recorded and transmitted to human authorities. Olivia's breathing had changed. It was slower now, deeper. Her hands, normally relaxed at her sides, had curled slightly. Bennett was 16 Earth years old when she watched the recording, Zrak continued, seemingly oblivious to the change in Olivia's demeanor. Her psychological evaluation indicates that this event was the primary motivation for her, joining Earth's space program and applying to the Academy. He turned to face Olivia directly. Revenge is a primitive emotional response. It has no place in the Galactic Alliance. Humans like Bennett are evolutionary dead ends whose aggression makes them unsuitable for galactic society. Something shifted in Olivia's stance. It was subtle, a slight change in weight distribution, a minimal adjustment in the angle of her shoulders. But to a trained observer, it would have been obvious that she had moved from a passive to a ready position. Today, Zrak said, picking up a training staff, we will demonstrate how easily these primitive emotional responses can be triggered in underdeveloped species. He twirled the staff with practiced ease. Human Bennett, defend yourself, using the techniques you have been taught. Olivia looked up at him. For the first time since joining the Academy, the expression in her gray eyes had changed. The quiet, observant look was gone, replaced by something cold and focused that made even Zrak pause momentarily. Commander, she said, her voice quiet, but perfectly clear in the silent classroom. You've accessed restricted personal information to use against a student. That violates at least 7 Academy regulations. Zrak's mandibles clicked in amusement. Are you giving me a lesson in regulations, human? No, sir, Olivia replied, her gaze never wavering. I'm giving you a warning. A ripple of shocked whispers ran through the classroom. No one had ever heard the human speak like this. Zrak's amusement vanished, replaced by anger. You dare to threaten an instructor? Perhaps it's time I showed the class how to properly subdue an aggressive, primitive species. He lunged forward with the staff, moving with the frightening speed that had caught Olivia off guard in previous sessions. But this time, something was different. This time, she was ready. As the class watched in stunned silence, Olivia's body tensed. Her breathing slowed even further. Her eyes narrowed slightly. The quiet apex predator had finally been pushed too far. Commander Zrak's training staff whistled through the air as he attacked Olivia with a speed that had always overwhelmed her before. The class leaned forward, expecting to see the human knocked to the ground as usual. But the staff hit nothing but air. Olivia had moved not the desperate dodge of previous sessions, but a smooth, precise shift that left her standing just beyond the staff's reach. Her movements were different now. Gone was the hesitant student. In her place stood someone else entirely. Interesting, Zrak said, his compound eyes narrowing. It seems our human has learned something after all. He attacked again, this time using 2 of his forearms in a combination strike that would have been impossible for most species to avoid. Olivia didn't try to avoid it. Instead, she stepped into the attack. What happened next occurred so quickly that many students couldn't follow it. Olivia's right hand caught Zrak's upper wrist while her left forearm deflected the staff. Using the Dravian's own momentum, she pivoted and struck with her elbow at a point where his exoskeleton segments connected. There was a sharp crack. Zrak hissed in pain as his lower right arm went limp. The classroom fell completely silent. "You struck an instructor," Zrak said, his voice dangerous. "That is a serious violation of Academy rules." "This is a combat demonstration," Olivia replied calmly. "You instructed me to defend myself using techniques I've been taught." "I did not teach you that technique." "No," Olivia agreed. "You didn't." Fury flashed across Zrak's alien features. He tossed aside the staff and lunged at Olivia with his 3 functioning arms, all pretense of training gone. His only goal now was to put the human back in her place. Olivia didn't retreat. She moved forward to meet him, her body flowing like water around his attacks. Each time Zrak struck, she redirected his force rather than opposing it directly. When she counterattacked, her blows landed with surgical precision on the weak points of his exoskeleton. "Nerve cluster behind the secondary neck plate," Olivia said as she struck the spot, causing Zrak's left arm to spasm. "Exposed when a Dravian overextends on an attack." The class watched in stunned silence as she continued, her voice taking on the same clinical tone Zrak used during lessons. "Joint connection at the midpoint of the primary thorax," she said, delivering a short, sharp strike that made Zrak stumble. "Vulnerable to direct pressure, especially when weight is shifted forward." Zrak roared in rage and charged forward, abandoning all technique in favor of brute strength. Olivia sidestepped at the last moment, her hand shooting out to target a spot just below where his head connected to his body. "Primary balance organ," she said as Zrak crashed to the floor, suddenly unable to coordinate his limbs. "Located at the base of the head crest, protected by thin exoskeleton that can be penetrated with precisely applied force." The massive instructor lay on the training mat, his limbs twitching as he struggled to regain control of his body. Olivia stood over him, completely calm, as though this outcome had been inevitable. "What ... Zrak managed to say through his mandibles, "What are you?" Olivia knelt beside him, her voice low enough that only he could hear. "I'm what humans become when they watch their parents die and decide to make sure it never happens again." She stood and turned to face the class. Every alien student stared at her with new eyes, some with fear, others with newfound respect, all with shock. "The demonstration isn't over," Olivia said, her voice carrying clearly through the silent room. "Since Commander Zrak is temporarily unable to continue, I'll complete today's lesson on predator psychology." She walked to the center of the training area as if she were the instructor now. No one challenged her right to speak. Humans evolved on what many species classify as a death world, Olivia explained. Earth has higher gravity, more extreme weather, and more diverse predators in most Alliance homeworlds. She began to pace slowly, exactly as Zrak did during his lectures. "What you see as physical weakness is actually efficiency. We don't have exoskeletons because we need to move quickly. We don't have multiple limbs because we develop tools instead. We don't have natural armor because we learn to avoid attacks rather than absorb them. The security alarm suddenly blared throughout the classroom. Red lights flashed as the Academy's automated systems detected an instructor in distress. Olivia didn't react to the noise or lights. She simply continued her lesson. The most dangerous predators on Earth aren't the largest or strongest, she said. They're the ones that appear harmless until it's too late. The classroom door slid open. 4 security officers rushed in, weapons drawn. They stopped short at the scene before them, the massive Dravian instructor lying helpless on the floor, the small human female standing calmly in the center of the training area. "What happened here?" the lead officer demanded. Krill, the 6-limbed student who had shown Olivia kindness, stood up. Commander Zrak was conducting a combat demonstration. The human was defending herself. Other students nodded in agreement, even those who had previously shown nothing but contempt for Olivia. The security officers looked uncertain. One of them approached Zrak, checking his condition. "He needs medical attention. His neural systems are in shock." "He'll recover in approximately 20 minutes, Olivia said. No permanent damage was. "Done." The lead security officer turned to her with new wariness. "You did this? How?" "I simply applied the techniques I've learned at the Academy," Olivia replied. Her face was as calm and unreadable as ever, but there was something different in her eyes, now something that made the security officer step back involuntarily. "All students remain here," the officer ordered. "Security Protocol 7 is now in effect. The Academy Director will want to review this incident personally." As the medical team arrived to take Zrak away, Olivia returned to her seat at the back of the class. The other students moved subtly away from her, leaving an empty space around her desk. No one spoke to her, but many watched her with sidelong glances. Vex, the insect-like student who had mocked her on the first day, leaned toward his blue-skinned friend. "Did you see how fast she moved? I didn't know humans could do that." The blue-skinned student shook her head slowly. "I don't think Commander Zrak knew either." At her desk, Olivia sat with the same perfect posture she had maintained throughout her time at the Academy. To anyone watching, she appeared completely calm, as if nothing unusual had happened. Only the slight upward curve at the corner of her mouth suggested otherwise. The quiet apex predator had finally shown her true nature, and nothing at the Academy would ever be the same. The Academy Director's office was large and circular, with a domed ceiling that displayed a real-time view of the stars outside the station. Director Lan, a tall, slender being with silvery skin and no visible eyes, sat behind a curved desk, made of some material that seemed to glow from within. Olivia stood at attention before the desk, her posture perfect, her face showing nothing of her thoughts. 6 hours had passed since the incident with Commander Zrak. She had been questioned by security, examined by medical staff, and confined to a holding cell until this meeting. "Cadet Bennett," Director Land said, his voice melodic and without any need for a translator. All members of his species were natural telepaths who could communicate directly in any language. "Do you understand the seriousness of what happened today?" "Yes, Director," Olivia replied calmly. "Commander Zrak has filed formal charges against you. Assault on an instructor, insubordination, conduct unbecoming an Academy cadet." The director's featureless face turned toward her. "These charges could result in your immediate expulsion and the termination of Earth's probationary status in the Alliance." Olivia remained silent, waiting. Director Land tapped a sequence on his desk, and a holographic display appeared in the air between them. It showed the training room from multiple angles, replaying the incident with Zrak in high definition. "However," the director continued, "our investigation has revealed some troubling facts about Commander Zrak's conduct. The display shifted to show previous training sessions. Olivia being thrown to the floor repeatedly. Zrak using excessive force that went well beyond any reasonable training method. The most recent incident where he displayed her confidential psychological profile. Commander Zrak has violated 17 separate Academy regulations, Director Land said. His actions constitute a clear pattern of targeted harassment against you specifically, and against humans generally. The display disappeared. The director leaned forward slightly. What I find most interesting, Cadet Bennett, is not what Commander Zrak did, but what you did. Olivia met his gaze steadily, though she could not see his eyes. You endured his abuse for 3 months, Director Land said. You allowed him to injure you repeatedly. You visited the medical bay 27 times, but filed no complaints. Why? For the first time, Olivia's expression changed slightly. A small smile appeared on her lips. I was gathering information, sir. The director made a sound that might have been a laugh. Information? Yes, sir. About Dravian physiology, combat techniques, and psychological patterns. Director Land was silent for a long moment. You used yourself as bait, he said finally. You allowed Zrak to think you were weak, even as you studied him. Humans have a saying, sir. Knowledge is power. The director stood and walked to a large window that looked out over the Academy's central courtyard. What else have you been studying during your time here, Cadet Bennett? Olivia hesitated for the first time. Sir, your academic records show perfect scores in xenobiology, comparative anatomy, and combat theory. Your physical training results are precisely at the middle range for your species, never exceeding average benchmarks. Almost as if I were deliberately hiding my true capabilities, Olivia finished for him. Yes. The director turned back to her. Why would you do that? Olivia took a deep breath. Permission to speak freely, sir. Granted. Humans are new to the Alliance. We're seen as primitive, dangerous, unpredictable. I believed that showing our full capabilities would only increase fear and suspicion. And what are those full capabilities, Cadet Bennett? That depends on the human, sir. For me, I have what we call an eidetic memory. I never forget anything I see or experience. I've been studying every alien species at the Academy since my arrival. The director returned to his desk and pressed another sequence. A new holographic display appeared, this one showing Olivia's application to the Academy. Your file says you were a combat instructor on Earth before joining us. It does not specify what kind of combat. No, sir, it doesn't. The director's silver face turned toward her again. There is a communication waiting for you. It arrived an hour ago from Earth Central Command. He activated a screen on his desk, and the face of an older human male appeared. He wore the black uniform of Earth's Special Forces, with the rank insignia of an admiral on his collar. Olivia, the man said, his voice gruff but not unkind. They've contacted us about the incident. It's time. The message ended. Olivia's face remained impassive, but her hands had tightened slightly at her sides. Who is that man? Director Land asked. Admiral Paul Grant, sir. He's the head of Earth's Special Operations Division. And what does he mean by, it's time? Olivia straightened her shoulders. Sir, I request permission to contact Earth Central Command for instructions. Denied, the director said flatly. This is an Academy matter, and you will answer my questions directly. What is your real purpose here, Cadet Bennett? For a long moment, Olivia was silent. Then she nodded slightly, as if coming to a decision. I am part of a specialized program, sir. Earth has been studying alien species since first contact, particularly their combat capabilities. We needed to know if humans could compete physically with Alliance members. You're a test subject? No, sir. I'm an operative. My mission was to assess the Academy's training methods. document the combat capabilities of major alliance species, and determine whether humans could effectively serve as peacekeepers despite our physical differences. The director's silver face was unreadable. You're a spy. I prefer the term observer, sir. I was not here to steal technology or military secrets, only to learn if we could truly be part of the alliance as equals. Director Land sat back in his chair. And what have you observed, Cadet Bennett? That the alliance underestimates humans. Olivia said simply, we're physically stronger than most species expect, given our size. We have greater endurance. We can ignore pain that would incapacitate many other beings. Most importantly, we adapt quickly. Like you adapted to Commander. Zrak's fighting style. Yes, sir. The director was silent for a long time. Olivia waited, her face calm, but her mind racing through possible outcomes of this conversation. Finally, Director Land spoke. There will be a formal inquiry into this incident. Both you and Commander Zrak will be required to testify before the Academy Board. I understand, sir. Until then, you are suspended from regular classes. However, the director paused. I am assigning you to special research duty in the Xenobiology Department. I believe your unique observational skills could be valuable there. Olivia blinked. In surprise, sir, the alliance was not formed only by species with natural advantages, Cadet Bennett. It was formed by those who could contribute unique perspectives. Perhaps humans have more to offer than we initially believed. For the first time since arriving at the Academy, Olivia felt something like hope. Thank you, sir. Don't thank me yet, Director Land said, rising from his desk. The board may still decide to expel you, but I suspect Earth Central Command will have something to say about that. As Olivia turned to leave, the director added, One more thing, Cadet. Yes, sir? Next time you decide to take down an instructor, perhaps consider a less public venue. Olivia couldn't help the small smile that crossed her face. I'll keep that in mind, sir. As she walked back to her quarters, no longer under guard, she noticed how other cadets moved out of her way in the corridors. News had spread quickly throughout the Academy. The human who had taken down Commander Zrak was no longer seen as weak or primitive. She was seen as dangerous. Good, Olivia thought. Perhaps now they would start learning from each other as equals. 2 weeks after the incident with Commander Zrak, the Academy's main auditorium was filled to capacity. Representatives from 37 species sat in tiered seating, their diverse forms creating a living mosaic of colors, textures, and shapes. At the center of the room stood a circular platform with the Academy Board. 7 senior officials from the most influential Alliance worlds sat in judgment. Olivia stood before them in her cadet uniform, freshly pressed and perfect. Commander. Zrak stood several feet away, his posture rigid, his compound eyes fixed straight ahead. The inquiry had lasted for 5 days. Every moment of Olivia's time at the Academy had been examined. Every training session with Zrak had been reviewed. Every medical report had been analyzed. Dozens of witnesses had testified, including students, instructors, and medical staff. Now it was time for the board's decision. Chief Magistrate Vorn, a massive being whose species resembled Earth's ancient dinosaurs, rose to his full height of nearly 12 feet. His voice rumbled through the auditorium like distant thunder. This board has reached its conclusion in the matter of Cadet Olivia Bennett and Commander Zrak, he announced. Our findings are as follows. The room fell completely silent. Olivia kept her eyes forward, her face calm as always, though her heart beat faster in her chest. Commander Zrak is found guilty of conduct unbecoming an Academy instructor, abuse of authority, excessive use of force and training, and violation of student privacy protections. The Chief Magistrate's reptilian eyes narrowed as he looked at the Dravian. He is hereby removed from his teaching position and reassigned to the Outer Colony Support Division. A murmur ran through the crowd. Reassignment to the outer colonies was effectively a demotion, a punishment that would follow Zrak for the remainder of his career. As for Cadet Bennett, Morn continued, turning his gaze to Olivia, the board acknowledges that her actions were taken in self-defense after repeated provocations. However, the concealment of her true capabilities and her status as an observer for Earth's Central Command constitutes a breach of Academy transparency protocols. Olivia's expression didn't change, but her shoulders tensed slightly. Under normal circumstances, such a breach would result in expulsion, Vorn said gravely. The auditorium was so quiet that Olivia could hear the soft breathing of the alien beside her, 3 rows back. However, the Chief Magistrate continued, these are not normal circumstances. The arrival of humans in the galactic community has presented unique challenges for all parties. The board recognizes that Earth's caution in revealing the full extent of human capabilities was understandable given the reception they have received thus far. Vorn looked out over the assembled crowd. This incident has revealed significant flaws in our integration protocols. If the Alliance is to live up to its founding principles of unity through diversity, we must do better. He turned back to Olivia. Cadet Bennett, you will be placed on probation for 1 standard cycle. During this time, you will assist in developing new training protocols that better account for the unique attributes of human physiology. You will also serve as liaison between the Academy and Earth Central Command to improve transparency and cooperation. Olivia blinked in surprise. This was not the punishment she had expected. Additionally, Vorn added, in recognition of your exceptional observational and combat skills, you are being promoted to the rank of specialist, effective immediately. A shocked murmur ran through the crowd. No first-year cadet had ever been promoted to specialist in the Academy's history. Thank you, Chief Magistrate, Olivia said, her voice steady despite her surprise. I will serve with honor. As the formal proceedings concluded, Olivia found herself surrounded by cadets and instructors, many of whom had never spoken to her before. Some offered congratulations. Others asked questions about Earth and human capabilities. A few simply watched her with new respect in their alien eyes. Krill, the 6th-limbed student who had shown her kindness from the beginning, pushed through the crowd to reach her. I knew you were hiding something, he rumbled, his translator barely keeping up with his excited speech. But I never imagined this. Olivia allowed herself a small smile. Sometimes the best defense is to be underestimated. You won't be underestimated anymore, Krill said, gesturing around at the crowd. The entire Academy is talking about the human who took down Commander Zrak. Before Olivia could respond, a hush fell over the group. The crowd parted to reveal Director Lan, accompanied by a human male in a formal Earth diplomatic uniform. Specialist Bennett, Director Lan said, allow me to introduce Ambassador John Carter, Earth's new representative to the Galactic Alliance. The ambassador stepped forward, extending his hand to Olivia in the human tradition. Specialist Bennett, your actions have caused quite a stir in diplomatic circles. Olivia shook his hand firmly. I hope I haven't complicated your job too much, Ambassador. Carter smiled. On the contrary, your demonstration has opened several doors that were previously closed to us. The Alliance Security Council has requested Earth's input on their training protocols. It seems they're particularly interested in our understanding of adaptive combat techniques. That's unexpected, Olivia said. The universe is full of surprises, Carter replied. Speaking of which, there's someone here who would like to see you. He stepped aside, revealing Admiral Grant, the same man who had sent the message to Olivia after the incident. The Admiral's weathered face broke into a rare smile as he approached. You did well, Bennett, he said quietly. Better than we hoped, actually. Olivia stood at attention, Thank you, sir. I'm sorry I had to reveal myself sooner than planned. Plans change, Grant said with a shrug. And sometimes that's for the best. Your little demonstration has caused the Alliance to reevaluate their classification of humans. We're no longer listed as minimal threat potential. What are we listed as now, sir? The Admiral's smile widened slightly. Let's just say they're paying a lot more attention to that Death World designation for Earth. 3 months later, Olivia stood at the front of a training room, facing a class of 20 cadets from 18 different species. Among them were 5 humans, the first significant group to be accepted to the Academy since Earth joined the Alliance. Welcome to Adaptive Combat Techniques, Olivia said, her voice carrying clearly through the room. My name is Specialist Bennett, and I'll be your instructor for this course. She looked at the faces before her, some curious, some wary, some eager to learn. So different from her own first day at the Academy. The first lesson, she continued, is to never underestimate any opponent based on preconceptions about their species. Her eyes met those of a young Dravian cadet who sat nervously at the back of the class. The first of his kind to return to the Academy since Commander Zrak's disgrace. The second lesson, Olivia said with a small smile, is that the quiet ones are usually observing you most carefully. A ripple of nervous laughter moved through the classroom. Today, she said, moving to the center of the training area, we begin by learning to see beyond physical attributes to understand the true capabilities of different species, including our own. As she began the first exercise, Olivia felt a sense of satisfaction that went beyond personal vindication. Something important had changed in the Galactic Alliance. A door had been opened that could never be fully closed again. Humans had finally begun to find their place among the stars. Not as the primitives from a backwater world, but as equals respected, perhaps even a little feared, but most importantly, seen for what they truly were. The quiet apex predators had made themselves known.